Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Shapes.io. My name is Binz, and in this 19th part of the BUTTMAM series, we're going to talk about the code shape. The code shape is the shape that's output on this solitary display to the bottom right of the hub, and I briefly scratched the surface in video number 3 about signal encoding. If you haven't, I'd like to invite you to go watch that video first, as it is the foundation of what I want to talk about, to you about today. There is a link to the playlist at the end of this video, so video number 3. Okay, the code shape is a shape that tells me which of the near to 17 million possible piece combinations the machine is currently trying when it is in its analysis stage. I built it mainly for testing and verification purposes while I was still building this machine. But afterwards I thought, since I already went through the trouble, might as well relay the output to the hub as a nice extra gimmick. Now, for full disclosure, I don't know all of the millions of values that the display can carry by heart, what they mean. But it does give me a rough idea of which cyclers are currently active and which combinations of which types of floating pieces that corresponds to. But I do understand it to, I understand it to a point where it was a very useful assistance tool during the production of this machine. And if you aim to build a TMAM yourself, I would definitely recommend creating a self-testing mechanism like this one. Because as I've hopefully managed to make you realize over the course of this series, building your own TMAM gets very confusing very fast. The individual modules in and of themselves are not super hard, but the vexing part is combining them all with one another, which adds exponential layers of complexity for each module you connect. Everything interacts with everything else, and the sheer scope of your wiring, the sheer size of everything, may lead to you observing some kind of weird or undesired behavior, which may be triggered by just a single misplaced or wrongly connected piece of wire or unit located far outside your screen, all the way at the other end of your wiring or something, okay? So it is absolutely paramount that you have the blueprint of your machine in the back of your mind. And the code shape that I want to have a look at today with you definitely helped me with the creation of my own machine. The important part, and actually also the hardest part, is coming up with a system that works for you and your purposes. You need to come up with a system that you find meaningful. And thinking of a concept that helps you achieve what you want is far harder than actually building it, actually implementing it once you're done. And that, I'm afraid, is not something I can really help you with. The only thing I can do is show you how my system works, but I emphasize that this particular mechanic is only useful for my TMAM and the algorithm that I decided on, right? So you really need custom testing and verification machines whose only purpose is to help you build the TMAM in the first place, okay? What I can do and what I'm willing to offer is that you leave a comment sharing your trouble with me, and perhaps I can help you come up with a system of your own. Something like that. All right, but today we're going to have a look at the code shape and the way it helped me, the way it works for this machine, and maybe hopefully you find some inspiration And as I've said before, even if it doesn't inspire you directly, I still hope you you find it fun, entertaining, or interesting, whatever, to watch. Let's have a look. So we're going to go to the wiring layer, and we're simply going to follow this line back to its source. Here it is. Okay, so here's where the signal comes from, right? Here is the feed, and it actually comes from a combination of these top modules that are connected to the cyclers. So, how does it work? If you remember how the cyclers work, they take input from their floating piece analyzers, right? So the floating piece finder modules, they are fed into these cyclers, and I do a first conversion for the cyclers. So whichever candidates these cyclers get, these candidates are converted to differently colored circle, you know, full circles of different colors, right? One of 8 candidates. And then in the second step, what I'm going to do is, since these cyclers always come in pairs, right? There's always a pair of 2 cyclers, is I'm going to encode the combination of both of these cyclers once more. So what I do is, let's just say that, for example, assume we are outputting a full red circle here. That is the candidate we've selected. There we go. And let's just say that we have a blue circle right here or something, right? So that is output. And yeah, both of these signals are connected to comparing units, and both signals, or the comparing units of both signals, are connected with an AND gate. And so every possible combination of these 2 wires is going to trigger exactly one additional code shape, right? So these shapes, they are codes that have a meaning, a custom value that I attributed to it, right? Please remember video 3 where we talked about this. So these shapes have values that only you know what they mean. That's the purpose, right? So in this case, the red star means that we have a red circle on one hand and a blue circle on the other, which in and of itself is already a coded or translated, between parentheses, value of you know, whatever candidates are fed into the machine. So that's what that means. So these are actually, you know, this is a translation in 2 steps, if you will. Okay, and that is output. Now again, the hardest part of this is coming up with a concept, and in practice what that meant for me was I needed to select values that I could combine with one another in an unambiguous way. So each value needs to be unique. I cannot have overlap. That's the purpose, because otherwise, you know, it defeats its own purpose. If I have one shape that can come from 2 different combinations or more, then this entire mechanism is pointless, right? I need all of these values to be unique. So I needed to be sure that all of these sets of values were mutually exclusive, right? That was the hardest part, coming up with that, because I have 6 sets of values, 1 for each pair of cyclers. right? So I have 6 pairs of cyclers, and therefore I have 6 sets of values. So this is the duo float cycler number 3, and what it is going to do is it is going to output the top half in various colors, or of either a circle or a star. Strictly the top half. So if the code shape contains a top half of either a circle or a star, then it means we have a candidate of, or we have a candidate selected of the duo float cycler number 3. That's what that means. Right now I'm going to disconnect this again so we get the actual shape. So that's what that means. Now the second of the duo float modules, it does the same, but it's going to take the bottom half. So again, let's simulate that by putting in a shape. Let's say the yellow circle. Okay, and why not take the yellow circle here as well? There we go. So now again we see we get an output, or we should be getting an output. Why am I not getting one? Oh, right, because this is a particular combination that can never happen. Oh, Jesus. Well, this is a good illustration of how everything adds layers of complexity. Remember when we talked about the filtering, that some combinations can't ever happen? Well, this has an effect on, you know, the way I had to encode this. So it's good that we stumbled on this. So a combination of yellow on the left and yellow on the right is not possible per definition. Why? Because that would mean that we would combine a given piece with itself. And in the bigger picture, that can never ever lead to the final shape, right? So you really need to keep everything, take everything into account, keep everything in mind. Okay, so yellow and yellow obviously doesn't work. Let's see, how about yellow and uncolored? I don't know if that will work. Come on, screen freeze again. There we go. Do we get an output for that? No. Then let's just take, let's see. Let's take purple and nothing, okay? So, nothing right here, and purple right here. That should work. Yeah, so now we get that. And this second module, it outputs bottom halves, right? So the third duo cycler, it output top halves of either circles or stars. This one does bottom halves of either circles or stars. All right, let's get rid of that again. Hello. Thank you. Okay, the third cycler, the first duo cycler, it outputs a combination of diagonally stacked squares and stars of varying colors. Okay, so if that is output, right, that is what we get on our final line. And, you know, this is mutually exclusive with this set and this set. So I can stack these shapes together, as you can see right here with this thing. We can stack them together, and I can never ever get a duplicate, okay? So that is the duo cycler. Now let's have a look at the second trifloat cycler, which kinds of shapes I use there. Here we get a diagonal windmill or a diagonal square output. let's force a value onto this. Let's take the cyan circle or something. Assume that is the candidate, we get output. And then the shape that is output would be this blue diagonal windmill, top left and bottom right. Okay, so that is output. And in case you hadn't noticed yet, there is always like a smart stacking module here that will combine, you know, the value coming from the left, and it will stack the new value on top. And that is how we create a coded shape, a final coded shape. Okay, so that is the second trifloat cycler. The first trifloat cycler does the same, if I'm not mistaken, but it takes the other side. So it takes the bottom left and the top right. Okay, and then finally the quad float cycler. Yep, the quad float cycler. It just uses full windmill shapes, I believe. Okay, so that's how that works. So again, the hardest part of this, excuse me, the hardest part of this is coming up with a system, firstly, that ensures that all of these values are unique, and secondly, a system that tells you what you need to know. So if we look at this, I can see, if I remember correctly, we have a duo float on the bottom layer. We have a duo float on the middle layer, and then we have a duo float on. Yeah, these are duo floats exclusively. Now, at the moment, this is not reflected here because, unfortunately, there is like this small delay that, you know, as a side effect, this shape, the one that is output, it doesn't always correspond to this display because of the ticks and whatnot. But, you know, as I said, it's janky, it's not 100% reliable and representative, but as far as its added value for myself during testing, it absolutely did what I needed it to do. Okay, and then a final thing, you know, now the signal is cut, and the way that is cut is, yeah, how does that work? So if we find the final shape, then somewhere I block the system. I blocked the signal. It's not here, apparently. It's right here. Yeah, so it's connected to the display. So I decided that when I get the final shape outputting, I should get a white square right here. The white square is triggered by a 1 on this wire. We're gonna have a look at where that comes from in the next video. But anyway, I connected it to a comparing unit. And if we get a 1 on both sides, then it is going to shut off this signal. So for demonstration purposes, let's just wait until this is finished. And then we're gonna have a final look at, you know, how these signals change. And then hopefully after having seen this video, you have a better understanding of what this shape means compared to before this video. Now again, the important part is that you need, you know, this encoding mechanism. It basically comes down to a kind of translation table. You know, that's basically what it is. So this shape, it means that I have selected a certain combination of pieces, and you need to know roughly, to the extent you need it in, you need to know what the translation table contains. You know, you set it up, you decide what it means, and therefore you can find additional, you can use this to your benefit. That's what it comes down to. So I believe, in comparison to the other videos, a relatively short video, but hopefully still an interesting one. As always, I want to thank you for watching. I believe that this is the second to last video, so we are almost done, sadly. But yeah, I hope to see you for the last video as well. Have a lovely day. I am out. Take care. Bye-bye.